Welcome to Haxby Shed. Today we're reviewing this Vevor 10-inch tilting milling table. Let me give you some vital statistics. So it looks like this. 10-inch, £75 UK money, 91 US dollars, 86 euros, just as a conversion. Weighs 35 pounds, 16 kilos. They do two models, the 10-inch one and the 7-inch one. So the 10-inch obviously is £75. The 7-inch one is £42. It's cheaper from Vevor direct than going through Amazon or somewhere like that. So we'll get this thing open. I've had a sneak peek, but I've not unwrapped it yet. So this will be a first. By the way, that £75 is the delivered price. Came within a couple of days, usual thing. You get a tracking email. Right, box within a box. Brush, spanner, handle. This handle looks a lot more sturdy than the one that I showed you on that website. I was a bit concerned about the handle might be a bit flimsy. I don't know about the 7-inch model, but this is cast and it looks all right. Just a minute. This is too darn heavy to do this. Double wrapped for what it's worth. Professionally tied into a bag. Oh, just a minute. It's beefy, I'll say that. Just to give you a comparison. So we've said £75. It sounds like I'm overselling this. I'm not. I'm just saying £75 for this. Now I saw a really nice Japanese swivel table somebody was selling not too far from me, and they wanted £400 for it, and obviously that wasn't new, and I've always fancied one of these. And I messaged him and said, look, I can't pay £400. Let's pull this up. I can't pay £400, but if you can't sell it, I'll give you £150. And he messaged back, you know, he didn't say, get lost. He messaged back and said, it's a really nice piece, I think it'll sell. And I never heard from him again. So, you know, I was prepared to pay £150, and that was a cheeky price. So at 75, I think, you know, we've got to think about value, quality versus value, but I'm not saying this is bad quality. I'm just saying, okay, just to give you a reference. Right, the spanner that comes with it, 14 one end, 17 the other. I'd chuck that in the bin if I were you. So this is a 17 under here, and it's pretty tight. Oh, crikey. Just a minute. I'll get some purchase on it. Right, I'll show you the mechanism. If I can find the right angle. Can you see that? There's the screw, there's the worm, square drive, bit sloppy, don't think it matters actually. Smooth enough. This cross shaft here has got ball bearings on it. There's a scale at the side, and I think for approximate work it's fine. There's backlash in it, look, but you've got to think about what's the purpose of that screw. It's not necessarily to get an accurate angle. It's because when you've got something on this, I mean, this in itself is quite heavy, and then you put maybe a big vise on it, there's a lot of weight there. So I think the screw is really to make the thing quite manageable. If there was no screw, you know, it could slap down on the table and damage the table. So I think for its purposes it's okay. I can see quite a bit of dirt on here. It's the usual thing with these things. They're machined okay, but they don't get the crap off them before they put it together, look. Let's measure these T-slots. 22. About 10. Across the top, millimetres I'm talking about, 12. Now that's the extent. You might not get a 22 millimetre wide nut in there, but this one is 20 mil by 6 with a 10 mil screw, to give you an idea. There's just one imperfection in the casting I've seen, just there, where the metal just hasn't quite filled. Well, it must have been a cavity or something, and when they've machined the T-slot they've just uncovered it, but I shan't be worrying about that. Let's have a look at it for size on the mill table. Now this table is as far down as it goes. This is a Harrison mill, and this is quite a long adapter in here. It's a Clarkson, so I guess an end mill would come to about there, so it's not giving us a lot of room because it's a fairly big table, obviously, this tilting table. So whether I would, you know, by choice buy this one or the 7-inch, I don't know. I probably would go for this one, I think. It looks quite nice on there, doesn't it? Now it's just a quirk of my mill that the T-slot here brings this leg to the back of the table there on the mill. I don't think that matters any. It couldn't be clamped there because this is off the edge. So we'll put that on with a couple of bolts and we'll see how sturdy this is. Bit of rock there, not quite sure why. Oh no, it's only the table. I haven't got the table tightened. I think that's all right. No, there's still a bit of rock. Can you hear that? Investigate. Well, there's a definite rock on it across these feet and the base. It doesn't matter what position I try on this table, I'm getting that rock. So we'll flip it over and have a look. I can't see anywhere where it's been dinked to cause it to rock. The surface looks fine. And if I try with this straight edge, excuse the scratchy noise, I don't see anything obvious at all. But it wouldn't put me off, because if you could get the tabletop and the base to be parallel, you could just skim this. I mean, I bought a faceplate from the States. It was new old stock, but it cost me a lot of money, and it was running quite a way out on the lathe, and I had to remachine the face to true it up. So it's nothing of a job actually to skim over that. And it doesn't rock on its top surface against my mill table. That's absolutely fine. So something just slightly curious about the base, that's all. Back the other way up, and I think it's corner to corner. So it may well be that after all the machining, the casting just normalised a bit. Okay, so we'll get it bolted down and see how rigid it is. With it having that slight rock on the base, I don't know how much sense it makes to, you know, try to clock it this way. Like a lot of these things, you know, whether this was a swivel vise or a swivel table, these indicators here are generally only a guide. So I couldn't attest to this being, you know, 0 when it's 0. And of course these faces here are not precision ground. Too many knots really. I mean, it's good. You see how it jumped there? But, you know, I'm not saying that's a fault. I'm just saying that's what it does. We'll give it a chance and clock it up, but this plate isn't straight anyway. All I'm doing is putting a chamfer on the edge, perhaps like you might do to do some welding, but I've chosen a piece which is too long to fit in my machine this way, because the head only tilts this way, it doesn't tilt back and forward. So I'd have to do it something like this to put the chamfer on. So believe me, those clock movements are basically in this, they're not in the table. If you follow my channel, you might recognise this cutter as one I got in a job lot recently. I've never used it before, so I'm going to take a light cut to start with and just see how well it cuts. Well, that seems to have trimmed it all the way along the top there, so it's given me a bit more confidence. We'll take a bigger cut. One mil cut. I'll make this the last. We're only trying to demonstrate that the table is rigid. I didn't clamp that table down 100% because it's got that rocking base. I didn't want to cause a problem. I would wait until I've machined the base. Coolant everywhere, of course. I think we've proved the point, haven't we? "20 degrees inclination was a random choice. I just wanted to test it." It seems to have cut this pretty well. There was no chattering, which this is inclined to do anyway, just because of what it is. So the table seems to be really solid. Here I'm just trying to show the rigidity and potential for this angled tilting table base. So you can see what I've done, okay? And I'm on an indexing base here because my Harrison mill doesn't have a quill. So I can kind of spot drill on that. I can drill small holes on it by raising the table, but if it's anything, you know, larger, I need to do it on here. So this would work. Now this table tilts this way, the same way as I've got this actually. But if I had this tilted and moved this round, I could get a compound angle. So I think that's got great potential, that base. Well, you've seen it now, the good and the bad. Query whether or not these surfaces would run absolutely true when you tilt the table. Don't know, unproven. Also, there's a little bit of rock on the base. Does it matter? For the jobs that you saw me doing there, it wouldn't matter at all. Most people who buy these have got a milling machine, so you could just set this square, flip it over, and just trim that base. It would be nothing of a job. So, for £75 delivered, I think it's great. I might sound like a second-hand car salesman when I say this, but I've put the discount links in the description. They work all over the world, and I think there's a general discount code as well. And don't forget, the 7-inch base is only £42. I mean, what can you buy for £42? So I'm being genuine, I really like it. Now then, if you'd like me to review any other Vevor products, just let me know. They have to be relevant to what I do in here. And also, Vevor are not promoting all products always. It depends how much stock they've got. But if I can get it, I will, if you want it. They don't supply electrical products in the UK. Okay? Postscript, next day. Let's sort this out. Start by cleaning these up. My goodness. What a mess. Sealed bearings. We'll just take the rough edges off this. Just trying to level this. Look at this, the indicator's on 0. I am impressed. Well, here's another reason to skim it. That dial is on 0. What would you say? 7 1/100ths of a millimetre, perhaps 3 thou, which is not bad. Make sure we can reach all 4 corners. Watch that against the bottom of this head. It's going to be clear, I think. I've just touched off by hand. You see the cigarette paper there, wiped aside. Now when I bought this, there was one insert missing. These are Mitsubishi inserts. So off eBay I bought a real fake Mitsubishi insert, and look. So either that insert is a different size or it doesn't sit properly. Got to sort that out. What a pain. Glad I checked it now. Well, this is not a review of inserts, but this Mitsubishi insert measures 12 millimeters exactly, and this fake measures 12.08, so about 3 thou bigger. And when I bought this, there was even a picture. The icon was a Mitsubishi insert. eBay strikes again. I should have known better. Well, I don't have any other cutters anywhere near as big as this, so I've just taken that bad insert out. I think as long as I run the traverse slowly enough, it'll be fine on this stuff. Since I made this test cut over here, I've been readjusting, trying to find the best position. I've moved the table clamps so that they clamp onto the clamping bolts that secure this to this. Doesn't make much difference actually. But what I do know is when you clamp this down against this base, this twists a little bit. And I think that's what the issue is. I think they've machined this before this was clamped to this. And there are some differences which over this distance causes the rock. So I'm going to go for it. I'm going to skim this now. I've got it where I want it. I would say a couple of things. The first is it might be best to have that in a neutral position before you clamp this, if you can. Because if it's forcing against this, you clamp these down and I think that causes a bit of twist. And the other thing is, you know, in an ideal world, this wouldn't be a tube like that. That would be solid cast iron. But I don't want to be too critical because I do still like this. So now we'll give it the skim. This is the first job I've done since I reset these head bearings. I know this isn't giving it much work to do, but it seems to be running really well. That's it, I think. So next, we'll unclamp it, flip it over, make sure it's flat against this table, check the top. You know what they say, it'll be alright in the end, and if it's not alright, it's not the end. There's absolutely no rock on this whatsoever, so I'm going to clamp it with its own feet and I'll just put a dial gauge across the top. I'm sure that'll be fine. I could skim it to make it look slightly nicer, but that's just vanity. It's perfectly fine as it is. Right, we've got 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then it just drops slightly in this corner by a couple of thou, so 5 1/100ths of a mil. And we've got a similar thing just over here, but it's a very slight dip, probably 1.5 thou, something like that. So I really don't think that table's worth skimming. Well, it really is the end this time. You know, I still think for £75 this is great. And I don't think most people would care two hoots about the things I'm fussing about with here. See you on the next one. Oh, vanity.